In 2003, while city workers were repairing a sewer line on a residential street in downtown Portsmouth, it was revealed that the sewer line had been previously installed atop a number of ancient and decaying coffins. This unexpected discovery provided indisputable evidence of what had been suspected by some and yet more broadly overlooked for centuries: the existence of an African burying ground within this area dating back to the mid-1600s. This revelation and the resulting call to address and correct this wrong, involving historians, archaeologists, city and state officials, the National Endowment for the Arts, along with significant funding and support from a host of local citizens, culminated in the creation of the Portsmouth African Burying Ground Memorial, which was dedicated in May of 2015. As the designer and artist commissioned to create this project, I became immersed in the depth and scope of the site's historical and contemporaneous significance. Throughout my involvement, however, it was the implications of that 2003 discovery which remained as the pivotal event in my mind. This led to my determination to commemorate that date through a performance event which I called Blank Page Poetry, Words and Shadows. Working in collaboration with Kate Lee, Portsmouth's recently appointed Poet Laureate, we selected a number of original poems by local individuals which were deemed relevant to the theme, Truths That Arise Remembered. In addition, working with my choreographer, Bria Callie, members of the local Neoteric Dance Company were enlisted in the creation of 2 dance segments. Within the format of blank page poetry, the poets present their works by way of their body backlit as a shadow cast upon a suspended sheet of white paper, infusing meaning and expressiveness into their words through movement and emotive speech. Simultaneously, key phrases from each poem, as selected by the poet, are cast upon that same sheet of paper. Extensive rehearsals were held during which each participant, new to performing, came to further understand the implications of their words from a performance point of view. What resulted was what one audience member described as, quote, watching the soul of the poet made evident, end quote. What follows is documentation of the Blank Page Poetry, Words and Shadows performance, which took place at 3S Art Space in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, on October 23, 2015. What nameless and untamed eventuality enshrines the rhythm of this rising tide, blending history with the melody of leaf-bearing trees, while festooned in the mosaic of equality bursting with bloom. Yet there are moonstruck moments when the whispering of the stones begs questions of the coupling between land and sea, asking, how many indignities of this existence does the soil contain? Has duplicity reframed, might we now poetically proclaim in words as well as shadows? And whose bones, unheralded, infuse the aggregate of this foundation, empowering charms and casting off nullification such that no amount of asphalt, lies, and dismissal shall prevent these souls from receiving due respect. And how many voices, including our own, shall it take to speak this tome into formation? We, the beneficiaries of this coastal enclave, in order to invoke a more inclusive union, embrace the spirits that gave voice to this land and uphold their lyrics to be as that of our own, enshrining their memories in this rising tide of poems. We, enlivened by ancestral breath, in words and movement do we commemorate the day, October 17th, 2003, when modernity breached the layers of our age-old disregard, revealing an unrelenting reality lying silent beneath our feet. The age-old souls in those near distant graves implore each of us to rise and speak truth in their behalf. And so, Portsmouth, I give you blank page poetry, words and shadows, truths that arise remembered.
Adinkra, you summon me. Sankofa. We dug deeply to find the distant past that always lay beneath our feet, unseen because we hoped it had been forgotten. But now we're here remembering our past, scales fallen from our eyes and free at last to reconstruct what really happened here and reconcile the checkered past we share. What are you doing, my jolly griot friend? Moving 100 hearts to heed your boasting. Your nimble fingers coax your kora. Sing 1,000 ballads to your mighty king. Bambara, Hausa, Wolof, Manding, the only tongue that matters is your own. King will smile on you and grant you favors, blessing you and blessing all your neighbors. I was once one of those, remember? How came it to be I no longer live there? I am in Portsmouth, unheard, my brother. Where are you? In Kumasi, being weighed, a pound of gold for every precious pound of you. Queen of all you survey, proud clan mother touching a near leg of the golden stool. Your brother, the Ashantahene, sits impassive, also worth his weight in gold. The ancient story can never grow old or be told often enough. Power is proof against insubordination, and gold complements compliance. No heads are lost when subjects feel loyal at any cost. Why am I not there? Why lost my wits? I am in Portsmouth, weighed and found wanting. Where are you? Chanting Quranic verses in the fabulous mosque of Timbuktu, surrounded by countless old manuscripts, comforted by wisdom, soothed by order. Cool sacred corridors guide every step back to the inner sanctum and Allah. Respecting Allah is best. Salvation can't be earned by contemplation inside these hallowed walls, but must be matched by deeds of the heart anywhere you are ready. Once I too strove to be the perfect man. Now I'm letterless in Portsmouth, brother. Where are you? Roaming forest canopies in pursuit of food for your family, gathering nuts, berries, and seeds along a wide river gleaming in the sunlit summer afternoon, while farther inland your men hunt, and on the river your boys fish for their daily catch. Girls make bracelets from grass and animal hair by your side. How comes it I no longer wander free? I am a slave in Portsmouth, my mother.
When back in October of 2003, our earth was disturbed, old Portsmouth's black voices were finally heard. This sacred site, known as the African Burying Ground, overbuilt with commerce, is now honor-bound. After years and years of planning, and only just last May, with ancestral preparations, bones are reinterred in graves. The memorial site is small, with a large charge on our spirits. There are many challenges that signify how we see it. So absorb the passages engraved here, gaze long at the sculpted faces, stroll the ribbon of pleas, solemn scripted by the Portsmouth enslaved. Read the I Stand For poem, heard from captives' tongues. Sit on the stone benches. Ponder what's yet to be done. Wisdom born of errors, intent to amend the past. Let unity grow humbly as futures are recast. Redemption ground, prompt for peace, healing, and faith, lead us to a place within of beauty, truth, and grace.
We should not have to say Black Lives Matter, but we do. We should not have to say Black Deaths Matter, but we do. So say it. If you listen, sit quietly, go within, you will hear the soft, sad sound of dry dirt falling on hand-hewn wood, of an unshackled soul soaring up to freedom, seeking something better, and cries, songs, dances, prayers of remembrance, long forgotten, that all meant the same thing. Black lives matter. Black deaths matter. We beg your forgiveness.
They brought them here, grounded them here, killed them here, buried them here. The in-between uncovered them here, just to cover them again here. We recovered them here, honor them here, love them here. Hear us, golden, faceless statues stand before us. They remind us we are different than those before us. Remind us our era is here to heal.
Here we have truth bestowed upon us, unfathomable evidence of cruelty, neediness, unconditional loyalty, and affection. I am speaking to my daughter as cars rush behind us. The sun is high, steamy, uneasy. Curious, she imagines the faces in this black history. Take Dinah Gibson, caterer, genius in combining spices, blending cooking styles. She served tangy chocolates after tongue sandwiches, sangaree, lemonade. The Rice family children clung to her. Did she love them back? They shared tea, Dinah's red plaid and blue-striped petticoats, sewn from discarded white clothing, peeked underneath. My daughter asks, "And Cyrus and Flora?" I say, Cyrus had a contract with the Langdons. He was a working freeman. He dressed exquisitely, gold chains, silk stockings, silver-buckled shoes, and ruffled shirts. Remember, he greeted at the door for the future governor. Even met George Washington, perhaps. We stand in the cemetery of color. Cyrus married Flora, an arranged partnership. Was there love in their marriage? How deeply felt the misery when Washington signed the Fugitive Slave Act in 1793. Rumor had it that Langdon helped Ona Marie Judge, a runaway. Cyrus surely wore his silk stockings with orange and purple darnings at the toes and heels. My daughter tires. Here in the museum it is cooler. Clear water where the ewer stands full, ready to pour, is refreshing, cleansing after a day of hard work, like opening a trust vault. Surely the color of character speaks now, of the promise from waiting, from watching, from standing, from remembering.
How could she sing through her labors? What could she hope her laboring would bear? What fruit? What sweet reward? What cause for praise? What final sounds slipped past her lips as she lay down, her labors done? What lullaby? Sweet syllables, all softly sung, did her lost mother tongue bestow? A name, my given name, my mother's second gift to me. And so I sing before this tomb, full-voiced and strong, I set it free. My mother's name, unsung till now, in death unsung, except by me.
Scared, stolen children, all miracles, survived, arrived, whimpers held inside, tears dried on the wharves at Staveley's or Studley's. Fate's only better than those who died. Regarded, sold, recorded, renamed, except for Quamino, the one who resists the mystery that persists. Maybe they played along the river. Maybe they stayed still and listened, learned the language of revolution. 20 African men determining their own solution. They grew, they gathered. Black royalty, Nero, Jack, Pharaoh, and Prince. Admired, blazing a trail to freedom. Required, inspired, raised their voices in eloquent writing, cleverly inquired, what authority gives anyone superiority? Sacred religions, volumes of the law, laws of nature? Their voices cry, their petition pleads, the blessings of freedom, everyone's right. They unite and they fight. Our love of freedom cannot be denied. Tyranny and injustice, the Constitution belied. Their petition, no fruition. Ignored, laughed at, put aside. Not a word till that day, that time, that moment. Delicate voices heard. You returning, dignity in your bones. Ancestors held in tender respect. Redressed, redress, an offering blessed. Children of the heavens, now what remains we have of you, held in your words, in our arms, in this place, in this burying ground. Remembered, regarded, revered. Your place is taken at the table, in the church, in the land. Some uncertainty remains. Your return, we get it, learning from the past. You paddled, we churned. In your wake we stand now. We stand together, restored, in a state of liberty, in homage, in renewal, in hope, with resolve and love, with resolve and love, with resolve and love.
Our love of freedom shall happen. The hammering sound makes me think of that time. I hope freedom will come soon, and we won't forget your feelings. And we never will, I promise.
The petition of Nero Brewster and others, natives of Africa, now forcibly detained in slavery in said state, most humbly showeth that the God of nature gave them life and freedom, upon terms of the most perfect equality with other men. That freedom is an inherent right of the human species, not to be surrendered, but by consent, for the sake of social life. That private or public tyranny and slavery are alike detestable to minds conscious of the equal dignity of social life. That private or public tyranny and slavery are alike detestable to minds conscious of the equal dignity of human nature. That in power and authority of individuals derived solely from a principle of coercion against the wills of individuals, and to dispose of their persons and properties, consists the completed idea of private and political slavery. That all men, being amenable to the deity for the ill improvement of the blessings of his providence, they hold themselves in duty bound strenuously to exert every faculty of their minds, that through ignorance and brutish violence of their native countrymen, and by similar designs of others, and by the avarice of both, they, while but children and incapable of self-defense, whose infancy might have prompted protection, were seized, imprisoned, and transported from their native country, where they were born free to a country, where they are compelled and their unhappy posterity to drag on their lives in miserable servitude. Permit again your humble slaves to lay before this honorable assembly some of those grievances which they daily experience and feel. Though fortune hath dealt out our portions with rugged hand, yet hath she kindled in the disposal of our persons to those who claim us as their property. Of them, as masters, we do not complain, but from what authority they assume the power to dispose of our lives, freedom, and property, we would wish to know. Is it from the sacred volumes of Christianity? There we believe it not to be found. But here hath the cruel hand of slavery made us incompetent judges. But those, we are told, are founded in reason and justice. It cannot be found there. Is it from the volumes of nature? No, here we can read with others. Of this knowledge, slavery cannot wholly deprive us here. We know we ought to be free agents. Here we feel the dignity of human nature. Here we feel the passions of desires of men, though checked by the rod of slavery. Here we feel a just equality. Here we know that the God of nature made us free. Is there authority assumed from customs? If so, let that custom be abolished, which is not founded in nature, reason, nor religion. Should the humanity and benevolence of this honorable assembly restore us of that state of liberty of which we have been so long deprived, we conceive that those who are our present masters will not be sufferers by our liberation, as we have most of us spent our whole strength and the prime of our lives in their service, and as freedom inspires a noble confidence and gives the mind an emulation to vie in the noblest efforts of enterprise, and as justice and humanity are the result of your deliberations, we fondly hope that the eye of pity and the heart of justice may commiserate our situation and put us upon the equality of free men, and give us an opportunity of evincing to the world our love of freedom by exerting ourselves in her cause, in opposing the efforts of tyranny and oppression over the country in which we ourselves have been so injuriously enslaved. Therefore, your humble slaves most devoutly pray for the sake of ensured liberty, for the sake of justice, humanity, and the rights of mankind, for the honor of religion, and by all that is dear, that your honors would graciously interpose in our behalf and enact such laws and regulations as in your wisdom we may regain our liberty and be ranked in the class of free agents, and that the name of slave may no more be heard in a land gloriously contending for the sweets of freedom. And your humble slaves, as in duty bound, will ever pray.
And life, even so. Under a sky of free radiance, I walk toward solid, standing forms. They rise above stone and asphalt, by backyard fences. I imagine and revision bodies about me dripping in the heat. Heat endured at sharpened margins. They worked winter or summer, seasons of gain or loss, before finally rest, or perhaps unease yet. Stepping beyond these upright human blanks, these seen, unseen essences under the sun,
I hunt for details, the motes beyond sight, biscuits, cranky folk, chamber pots, milled siding, a governor's pride, children laughing with excelsior of unpacking, tides of China trade in every teacup. Then, too, the phantom stalking presence of another, more vicious trade, middle passage and resilience, revealed in daring, strong labor. But life, even so. There is newness here, not quite mute, utterance above earth's level. I sense a breeze, expressive ancient zephyrs, carried by calloused but graceful, gentle hands as they shape fresh American centers.
Mother Africa reaches for her children, but her hand cannot get to them anymore. They, like so many of her treasures, have slipped from her grasp, and no one can see her great mother grief as her quiet tears fall into the sea that takes her young, and no one can feel the searing heart pain in her engorged breast as her milk dries for want of suckle, and no one can know her spiritual sorrow as she wonders forever, where now will her children be laid to rest?
In my dream, I choose not of my father, not what my mother wanted, not abbreviated, nicknamed for shortcoming, not his name, the one stamped upon me. Masters, all of you meant to own me. What I require, dignified or silly, I design how it is you will call me.
You were here before me. On this land, in this place, something happened. You were here before me. On this land, in this place, something happened. Your forgotten bodies, your voices tell a story, reaching across centuries, reaching across oceans, reaching across cultures, reaching across chains of bondage. A story of a delusion that could make people property to be bought and sold. A story of vast economic systems, flows of trade in people, utter oppression, all built off the premise of you as less than, of you as other, labeled to dehumanize, indentured, slave, uncivilized. Now we see your humanity. Now we honor your remains and your suffering. We recognize and remember. With reverence, our community has brought our collective intention, resources, and creativity to help restore your dignity and honor this resting place properly, a reflective place to remember all who were forgotten. And we realize, in this dark chapter brought to light, we realize our fragmented narrative, where history was paved over and forgotten. We realize the past is still present, Tendrils of that collective trauma and oppression ripple through generations. Slaves and slaveholders, black and white, your story connects to my story. We realize these age-old patterns are still with us. Oppressed, oppressor, victim, perpetrator. A voice for some, no voice for others. A comfortable life blind to the labors of those who enable it. How do we heal history? How do we disrupt these patterns of wounding and injustice? How do we plant the seeds of healing and reconciliation? We renew our resolve to stand in honor of those forgotten, to seed new patterns through our actions. We renew our resolve to see each other through the lens of our common humanity, to refuse to be fragmented, polarized, and divided, to rediscover the underlying wholeness of which we are each an intrinsic part. We renew our resolve to uncover our blind spots, to work with the differences and difficult truths which make us uncomfortable. We renew our resolve to reweave the fabric of our communities, leaving no one out. To see that this pattern ends with me. At the African Burying Ground in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, on this land, in this place, something happened. A community remembered and recognized. A community restored and honored a forgotten chapter. A beloved community changed the pattern. This is what healing history looks like.
I stand for the ancestors here and beyond.
I stand for those who feel anger.
I stand for those who were treated unjustly.
I stand for those who were taken from their loved ones.
I stand for those who suffered the Middle Passage.
I stand for those who survived upon these shores.
I stand for those who pay homage to this ground.
I stand for those who find dignity in these bones.
Blank Page Poetry, Words and Shadows, Truths That Arise Remembered was presented by ArtSpeak in partnership with the Portsmouth Poet Laureate Program, 3S Art Space, Portsmouth Music and Arts Center, Seacoast African American Cultural Center, Portsmouth Black Heritage Trail, Neoteric Dance Collaborative, Seacoast Repertory Theater, Discover Portsmouth, and the Portsmouth Museum of Art. This project was made possible with generous support from the Thomas W. Haas Fund of the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation, the David and Kathleen Rushford Murray Charitable Fund of the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation, the Chamberlain Fund for Arts Builds Community of the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation, M. Christine Dwyer and Michael Huxtable, Janet Prince and Peter Berg, and the Portsmouth Sheraton Harborside Hotel, with special thanks to the 3S Art Space for providing the venue.